The Galactic Senate Hall was exactly what you'd expect from a civilization that had mastered faster-than-light travel, harnessed the power of stars, and still couldn't figure out comfortable seating. Thousands of representatives from across the Milky Way perched, slouched, or hovered in their designated areas, each section carefully climate-controlled to accommodate species that considered oxygen anything from delicious to that toxic gas. High Counselor Drex, a 12-foot-tall amphibious creature with skin that shimmered like an oil slick on a rain puddle, tapped his ceremonial staff against the floating podium. The boom echoed through the massive chamber, silencing the cacophony of clicks, whistles, and what sounded suspiciously like a game show theme song coming from the Betelgeusian section. Order. The 4,927th session of the Galactic Senate will now commence, Drex announced, his voice modulated to be simultaneously soothing to empaths and threatening to predatory species. Today's primary agenda, reviewing the application of Sol 3, locally known as Earth, for full membership in the Galactic Commonwealth. A series of images appeared on the massive holographic display in the center of the hall. Earth in all its blue-green glory rotated slowly, followed by pictures of human cities, natural landscapes, and a surprising number of cats in amusing poses. As you can see from the preliminary assessment, continued Drex, gesturing to the data scrolling beside the images, the humans have achieved the required technological benchmarks for consideration. They've developed basic interstellar travel, cured most of their diseases, and finally stopped broadcasting those infernal reality shows into space. This earned an appreciative rumble from the assembly. The Proxima Centauri delegation had been threatening sanctions for years over Earth's unintentional cultural contamination via The Bachelor. However, Drex said, his tone shifting to what humans would recognize as academic concern, the ecological assessment has raised some unusual questions. The holographic display changed to show Earth's evolutionary history, with particular emphasis on the steady disappearance of large predatory species coinciding with human advancement. According to our biological survey, Earth is the only known habitable planet where a single apex predator, humans, has eliminated virtually all competing predatory species. This is unprecedented. The representative from Regal IX, a species resembling a giant praying mantis, raised one of its serrated forearms. Verification requested. Are you suggesting these humans deliberately eliminated their competition? That's what our committee is attempting to determine, Drex replied. Which brings me to introduce Earth's representative, who will address these concerns. All eyes, optical sensors, and sensory tentacles turned toward a small platform rising from the floor. Standing upon it was a single human male of average height and unremarkable appearance, save for the crisp blue diplomatic uniform adorned with a single pin Earth's flag. Honored delegates. The human began, his voice calm and measured. I am Ambassador Jack Fletcher of Earth. I'm here to answer your questions and hopefully welcome Earth into our galactic community. Jack surveyed the enormous chamber with what appeared to be casual interest, but his eyes missed nothing. 20 years in diplomatic service had taught him to read a room, even when half the room had tentacles instead of faces. He noted the skeptical postures from the militaristic species, the curious tilting of heads from the scientific coalitions, and the unmistakable signs of disdain from the elder races who viewed Earth as a cosmic backwater. Ambassador Fletcher, Drex intoned, our preliminary surveys indicate that your planet once hosted thousands of predatory species. Now, only humans remain as apex predators. The committee would appreciate an explanation. Jack smiled the diplomatic smile he'd perfected over 2 decades, revealing exactly the right amount of teeth to appear friendly without seeming threatening to species that considered bared teeth a challenge. High Counselor, esteemed delegates, he said, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't eliminate our predators because they were competition. He paused. Allowing the translation systems to catch up, we eliminated them because they were inconvenient. And sometimes, because they were delicious. A shocked silence fell over the Galactic Senate. Then, from somewhere in the back, came a sound that the translation matrices couldn't quite process, something between a laugh and a gasp of horror. Jack Fletcher knew then that this was going to be a very long day. 3 standard days after Jack's statement left the Senate in an uproar. a sleek research vessel entered Earth's atmosphere. Aboard were two of the galaxy's foremost xenobiological experts, dispatched to determine whether humans were an ecological aberration or just really efficient hunters. Dr. Krill belonged to the Selvarian species amphibious beings evolved from something like octopi, if octopi had developed exoskeletons and doctorates. 6 of his 8 limbs were currently manipulating various scientific instruments, while the remaining 2 adjusted his moisture suit. Beside him, Professor Vexa of the Lumen looked on with poorly concealed impatience. The Lumen resembled tall, slender humanoids whose skin emitted a soft glow when they were excited, and right now, Vexa was practically a beacon. "This atmosphere is remarkably aggressive," complained Dr. Krill as the ship's sensors analyzed Earth's composition. "Oxygen levels at 21%, it's practically corrosive." Focused Dr. Vexa chided. Her luminescent skin pulsed with academic excitement. "We're here to solve the mystery of how one species without natural weapons, significant speed, and exceptional strength managed to become the sole apex predator on an entire planet." The ship touched down at the designated landing zone, a field adjacent to what humans called Central Park in New York City. As the airlock cycled, both researchers donned their environmental suits. Though Vexa's was mostly ceremonial, Lumens could tolerate Earth conditions. They just preferred not to. Waiting for them beside a sleek black vehicle was Ambassador Fletcher, looking significantly more relaxed on his home turf. Beside him stood a woman whose posture screamed military even in civilian clothes. "Welcome to Earth," Jack said as the aliens emerged. "This is General Maria Ortega, head of our Extraterrestrial Relations Defense Division. She'll be assisting with your investigation." Dr. Krill extended a tentacle in what he believed was the human greeting gesture. "Fascinating. You've assigned a military escort. Are we to be considered threats, Ambassador?" Jack and Maria exchanged glances before Jack replied, "More like insurance. Some of our remaining wildlife can be unpredictable." "Remaining wildlife?" Vex's skin flashed with interest. "Our scans indicate your planet still hosts approximately 8.7 million species." "Sure," Maria cut in, speaking for the first time. Her voice carried the crisp authority of someone used to giving orders. "But most of them are bugs, birds, and things smaller than your standard luggage allowance." "The big stuff?" "The things with big teeth and bad attitudes, mostly gone." Dr. Krill's skin shifted to a concerned mauve. "And you're suggesting this was random?" Jack smiled that diplomat's smile again. "Let's just say natural selection got a helping hand. Now we've prepared a research itinerary for you both. Day 1, Natural History Museum. Day 2, Hunting Preserve. Day 3, Texas." "What's a Texas?" Dr. Krill whispered to Vexa as they climbed into the vehicle. "I believe it's one of their territorial subdivisions," she replied, "known for excessive caloric consumption and combustion-powered projectile weapons." The Natural History Museum proved to be a temple to extinction. Dr. Krill moved from exhibit to exhibit with growing horror, his tentacles curling in distress as he catalogued the sheer variety of predators that had once roamed Earth. "Saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, short-faced bears," he muttered, recording everything. "And these all disappeared coincidentally with human expansion." Jack, who had been checking messages on his communication device, looked up. "Oh, those? Yeah, early humans hunted alongside those predators for millennia. Then we got better at hunting, they didn't, and, well, you can see the results." Vexa was studying a diorama showing prehistoric humans with primitive spears facing down a woolly mammoth. "Your ancestors hunted creatures 10 times their size with sharpened sticks. That seems improbable." Maria laughed. "It wasn't a comfortable sound. Lady, you have no idea. Humans didn't just hunt big animals. We figured out ways to use every part of them, turn their bones into tools, their skins into shelter, and then used those tools to hunt more efficiently. A remarkably efficient cycle of technological advancement," Vexa observed, her glow pulsing thoughtfully. "We call it necessity is the mother of invention," Jack added. "But really, it's more like being a slow, weak primate with no natural weapons will make you get creative real fast." As they moved through the museum, Dr. Krill grew increasingly agitated. He paused before a massive display showing the relatively recent extinction of species. Tasmanian tigers, 1936, and passenger pigeons, 1914. Pyrenean ibex 2000, he read aloud. These aren't prehistoric extinctions. And these are recent. Jack nodded solemnly. We got better at it, not proud of all of it, mind you. But it turns out, once a species figures out how to make tools specifically designed for killing, well, efficiency happens. Vexa's luminescence dimmed slightly as a disturbing thought occurred to her. Ambassador Fletcher, if humans eliminated most large predators on Earth and then developed interstellar travel? Yes, Jack prompted, that diplomatic smile firmly in place. What happens when humans encounter predators on other worlds? Maria snorted. We've got a saying for that too. Hold my beer and watch this. Dr. Krill didn't understand the reference, but something in the general's tone made his chromatophores shift to a distinctly worried shade of grey. Day 2 of the investigation took them to what humans called a hunting preserve in Montana, a vast tract of wilderness where Dr. Krill was disturbed to learn humans went voluntarily to stalk and kill animals for sport. Their guide was a weather-beaten man named Hank Townsend, who looked like he'd been carved from the very mountains surrounding them. His face was a topographical map of wrinkles earned through decades of exposure to the elements. And been hunting these lands for 50 years, Hank explained as he led them along a forest path. My daddy taught me. His daddy taught him. Goes back to when we first settled these parts. Dr. Krill, who was struggling to keep his moisture levels optimized in the dry mountain air, burbled with confusion. But if you no longer require these animals for sustenance, why continue hunting them? Hank considered this question with the gravity of a philosopher. Well, partly tradition. Partly conservation, believe it or not. Regulated hunting helps manage populations. And partly, he paused, looking off into the distance. There's something primal about it. Something that connects us to who we really are. And what would that be? Vexa asked, her skin pulsing with curiosity. The most successful predators this planet's ever seen, Hank replied without a hint of boastfulness, as though stating that water was wet. They crested a ridge and stopped at an overlook. Hank pointed down to a meadow where a herd of elk grazed peacefully. See those animals? Big, strong, fast, they've got antlers that could gore you in a heartbeat. But they're prey. Always have been. Because of their instincts. Vexa suggested. Partly, Hank nodded. But mostly because they never figured out what we did, that being smart beats being strong every time. He reached into his pack and pulled out something that made Dr. Krill recoil, a human hunting bow. This right here? Simple technology, had been around for 10,000 years or more. But with this, a human can kill from a distance that the prey never even knew was possible. He demonstrated the drawing motion. We didn't need to evolve claws or fangs. We built them. Later that evening, back at their research base, Dr. Krill pored over Earth's extinction data with growing alarm. The pattern is unmistakable, he explained to Vexa as holographic charts floated around them. First, the largest predators disappeared. Then progressively smaller ones. It correlates perfectly with human technological advancement. Vexa, who had been studying human cultural archives, looked up from her datapad. It goes deeper than that. Humans don't just hunt predators, they admire them. Their mythology, literature, and sports teams all glorify predatory attributes. That makes no logical sense, Dr. Krill burbled. Why would you admire what you systematically eliminate? Pofusi. Jack Fletcher, who had entered silently, a habit both aliens found unnerving, answered from the doorway. Because we recognize ourselves in them. Both aliens started, Vexa's skin flashing in surprise. Ambassador. We didn't hear you enter, she said. Yeah, we're good at that too, Jack replied with a half smile, stalking prey quietly, another predator trait we perfected. Dr. Krill's tentacles curled defensively. Your historical record shows humans actively hunted predators to extinction. African lions, reduced by 90%, tigers, bears, wolves all nearly eliminated. Jack nodded. Predatory competition. We're territorial. But here's what you're missing: we didn't just eliminate them because they threatened us. We eliminated them because we admired them so much we wanted to be better predators than they were. He picked up one of the holographic displays showing a prehistoric human with a spear facing off against a saber-toothed cat. This wasn't just survival. This was an upgrade. Why be afraid of the monster in the dark when you can become the monster? Vexa's luminescence dimmed thoughtfully. Your cultural archives also show extensive efforts to protect endangered species in recent centuries. You hunt them to near extinction, then preserve the remnants. The contradiction is difficult to reconcile. Jack shrugged. We're complicated. Once we'd won, once we'd proven beyond doubt that we were the apex predators, we could afford to be magnanimous. Victory allows for mercy. Dr. Krill's color shifted to a troubled blue. Ambassador, according to our research, humans have a saying, the most dangerous game is man. Are we to interpret this literally? Jack's expression grew serious. It's a literary reference, not an instruction manual. But yes, throughout our history, we've recognized that the most dangerous prey would be something that thinks like we do, something that can anticipate, plan and counterplan. Something like Vexa began. Something like other intelligent species, Jack finished for her. He let that hang in the air for a moment before his diplomatic smile returned. Fortunately, we developed ethics along with our predatory instincts. We haven't hunted each other to extinction, at least, not successfully. Not for lack of trying, according to your world wars, Dr. Krill noted. Jack spread his hands in a conciliatory gesture. Like I said, complicated. But here's something for your report. Humans didn't just hunt other species to extinction. We domesticated them. Wolves became dogs, wild aurochs became cattle. We reshaped entire species to serve our needs. Vex's skin pulsed with realization. You didn't just eliminate competition, you converted it into alliance. Exactly, Jack nodded. Why fight what you can recruit? It's the same principle we hope to apply to the Galactic Senate. His smile widened just enough to reveal the edges of his teeth. Partnership is so much more productive than competition. Don't you agree? Neither alien responded immediately, both suddenly aware that they were alone in a remote location with the galaxy's most efficient predator species and their disarmingly friendly ambassador. The Galactic Senate chamber buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread about Dr. Krill and Professor Vexa's findings, and attendance was at capacity. Even species that typically sent drone proxies had made the journey in person. Nobody wanted to miss what promised to be the most entertaining Senate session since the Betelgeusians had accidentally declared war on their own moon. High Counselor Drex called the session to order, his staff creating that familiar boom that rippled through the chamber. We reconvened to hear the assessment of Earth's application for Senate membership, with particular focus on their unique ecological history. Dr. Krill floated forward, his moisture suit humming softly as he addressed the assembly. Esteemed colleagues, our investigation has confirmed that humans have indeed systematically eliminated nearly all competing predatory species on their planet. But the motivation appears to be more complex than simple elimination of competition. Vexa joined him, her skin glowing with the excitement of scientific discovery. Humans didn't just kill predators, they studied them, emulated them, and ultimately surpassed them through technological innovation rather than biological evolution. A low murmur spread through the chamber. The representative from Arcturus, a methane-breathing entity resembling a cross between a bear and a jellyfish, raised a gelatinous appendage. Are we to understand that humans actively choose to behave as predators rather than being biologically compelled? Before either researcher could answer, Ambassador Jack Fletcher stepped forward. With respect, I believe I'm best qualified to address that question. Drex nodded permission, and Jack took center stage. Behind him, a holographic display activated, showing scenes from Earth's history from prehistoric humans with simple tools to modern cities. Distinguished representatives, Jack began, his voice projecting confidence. Humans evolved as omnivores capable of surviving on plants or animals. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most naturally armed species, but we had these. He tapped his temple. brains that could solve problems. He gestured to the first image: early humans fashioning stone tools. Our earliest technology was predatory, designed to more efficiently kill and process prey. Not because we were bloodthirsty, but because protein helped our brains grow bigger, which let us make better tools, which got us more protein. A positive feedback loop. The display shifted to show ancient civilizations. As we developed, we didn't lose those instincts, we channeled them. Agriculture, architecture, art, all predatory skills repurposed: planning, pattern recognition, patience. From the back of the chamber came a dismissive snort. All eyes turned to the delegation from Crax's Prime, a species of heavily armored reptilians known throughout the galaxy for their militaristic culture. "This is absurd," growled Commander Vexa of the Crax. His scales clicked against his ceremonial armor as he stood. "The humans survived through cunning because they lacked strength. They are prey species that got lucky, nothing more." Jack's diplomatic smile never wavered, but those who knew him well would have noticed a dangerous gleam in his eyes. "Commander Vexa, you raise an interesting point. Perhaps a demonstration would be illuminating." Jack turned to Drex. "With the Council's permission." Drex, clearly intrigued, gestured assent. Jack nodded to an aide who wheeled in what appeared to be a primitive display case. Inside was a carefully arranged collection of simple objects: a length of vine, several sticks, a stone, and what appeared to be animal sinew. "These," Jack announced, "are materials available to prehistoric humans. Nothing special, nothing advanced." With practiced motions, Jack began assembling the items. His hands moved with the confidence of someone who had performed this demonstration many times. Within minutes, he had constructed a simple but functional snare trap. This basic device, he explained, allowed early humans to capture prey much larger and stronger than themselves without risking direct confrontation. But that was just the beginning. He disassembled the trap and quickly reconfigured the materials, this time creating a small, handheld launcher. Made from the same basic materials, a spear thrower that doubles the range and penetrating power of a simple spear, and with slightly more advanced materials. Jack nodded to his aide again, who brought forward a curved piece of wood and string. A bow. Suddenly, the human predator can kill from distances that seem magical to prey that still thinks in terms of tooth and claw. The Commander Vex's scales rattled in what might have been derision. The primitive weapons for primitive beings. The Crax evolved natural armor and claws. We had no need for such tricks. Jack's smile widened slightly. "And that, Commander, is precisely why humans ended up with no natural predators. We never stopped developing tricks. We never got complacent." He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed scenes of human military training. "We turned predation into an art form, then a science, then a hobby. When we ran out of predators to test ourselves against, we created simulations, games, sports." The display shifted to show human children playing capture the flag, then adult soldiers in training exercises, then chess players contemplating their moves. Everything humans do, from our entertainment to our economics, comes back to predatory thinking, strategy, anticipation, exploiting weakness, not because we have to anymore, but because it's who we are. The Senate chamber had grown unusually quiet. Jack looked around at the assembled representatives, his expression serious now. "You asked why Earth has no predators left besides humans. Because we're really, really good at it. And now we're looking to join your galactic community not as prey, not as competitors, but as partners. Humanity has learned to channel its predatory instincts into creation rather than destruction. Mostly." Yeah. He let that last word hang in the air just long enough to be noticed before concluding, "We hope the Senate will recognize the value we bring to the galactic table." As Jack stepped back, the silence persisted for several more seconds before erupting into a cacophony of voices, clicks, and electromagnetic pulses, as hundreds of species began discussing this troubling and fascinating revelation all at once. High Counselor Drex's staff pounded 3 times, but the chamber took longer than usual to quiet down. The revelations about humanity's predatory nature had sparked intense debate among the Senate members. "Order. We will have order," Drex finally boomed, his voice modulated to carry undertones that triggered instinctive compliance in most species. The Commander Vexa of the Cracks remained standing, his armored scales gleaming under the chamber lights. The Craxian Empire remains unconvinced by the humans' theatrical display. Their words and primitive tools do not make a species worthy of Senate membership. Jack Fletcher started to respond, but Vexa continued, his reptilian voice carrying a hiss of challenge. If humans are truly the apex predators they claim to be, they should be willing to prove it. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Proving predatory capability was not a standard requirement for Senate membership, but it wasn't unprecedented. Several militaristic species had undergone similar challenges in the past. High Counselor Drex tilted his massive head. Commander Vexa, are you formally invoking the Predator Challenge Protocol? I am, Vexa confirmed, scales rippling with satisfaction. The Craxian Empire proposes a hunt on neutral territory. Human hunters against the galaxy's recognized apex predators. If they are as capable as they claim, they should welcome the opportunity to demonstrate their skills. All eyes turned to Jack Fletcher, who maintained his composed demeanor despite the unexpected challenge. After a moment of consideration, he smiled, not his diplomatic smile, but something sharper. Earth accepts the challenge, he said simply. The chamber erupted again. The Predator Challenge was rare enough to be exciting, dangerous enough to be concerning, and public enough that the outcome would be broadcast across the galaxy. Very well, Drex declared. The challenge will take place on the preserved moon of Nexus IV in 3 standard cycles. Each party will select their representatives. Standard survival rules apply: no energy weapons, no advanced technology beyond basic communications, and no outside interference. As the session adjourned, Jack found himself surrounded by concerned Senate allies. The representative from Proxima Centauri, a willowy being named Zell, placed a 3-fingered hand on his shoulder. Ambassador Fletcher, you must reconsider, Zell urged. The Cracks have chosen this challenge because their biological advantages are overwhelming in such conditions. Their champion will likely be Commander Draz, Vex's brother, who has never lost a hunt. Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. I appreciate your concern, Zell. But we've got this. I just need to make a call back to Earth. 48 hours later, a woman named Mia Rodriguez stepped off a transport shuttle onto the Senate station. She was neither particularly tall nor physically imposing. Her most notable features were the network of scars running down her left arm and the quiet confidence with which she surveyed her surroundings. Jack greeted her with a relieved smile. Thanks for coming on short notice. Mia shrugged. When the president calls and says Earth's Senate membership depends on my hunting skills, it's hard to say no, though I'm still not sure why you picked me specifically. Because you're the best, Jack replied simply. 20 years as a wilderness guide in Alaska, consultant for 3 different national special forces, and the only human to successfully track and photograph all of Earth's remaining large predator species in their natural habitats. Flattery will get you nowhere, Mia said with a half smile. Brief me on what we're dealing with. As they walked, Jack brought up holographic images of the challenge arena and the competing predators. Nexus IV terraformed moon, artificially stocked with terrain mimicking various planets. The Cracks champion will be Commander Draz, basically a 9-foot-tall intelligent velociraptor with body armor. Mia studied the images. And the prey? That's the twist. There are 5 different apex predator species from across the galaxy released in the arena. The challenge is to hunt more of them than your opponent within a planetary rotation. Mia whistled low. So I'm hunting the hunters? Exactly. What are the rules on equipment? Jack grimaced. That's where it gets tricky. No energy weapons, no advanced tech. Basically primitive hunting tools only. To his surprise, Mia grinned. The day of the challenge arrived with much fanfare. The Senate observation platform overlooking Nexus IV was packed with representatives eager to witness the contest. Massive holographic displays showed different areas of the hunting grounds, which had been divided into 5 distinct habitats: jungle, tundra, desert, wetland, and mountain. On the preparation deck, Mia calmly assembled her gear while the crack's champion, Commander Draz, performed an elaborate pre-hunt ritual, his claws extended and gleaming. He towered over the human, his body covered in natural armor that could repel most primitive weapons. Dr. Krill and Professor Vexa had joined Jack on the observation deck, both clearly concerned for Earth's chances. The weapons disparity is significant, Dr. Krill noted, his tentacles curling anxiously. The cracks have natural advantages that your champion lacks. Jack watched as Mia tested the draw weight on a composite bow she'd been permitted to bring. "You're still thinking like prey," he said quietly, waiting to see who's stronger or faster. "And humans think differently?" Vexa asked, her skin pulsing with curiosity. "We think like predators," Jack replied. "We don't try to be stronger than our competition, we make our competition irrelevant." Below, the competitors entered their deployment pods. The final countdown began. High Counselor Drex's voice boomed across the arena. "The Predator Challenge begins now." The pods descended to different entry points in the artificial landscape. The hunt was on, and the fate of Earth's Senate membership hung in the balance. The observation deck fell silent as the Predator Challenge commenced. Massive holographic displays tracked both hunters, Commander Draz stalking confidently through the jungle sector, while Mia Rodriguez had been deployed to the tundra. "An interesting opening strategy by the human," commented the Arcturus representative. "Most challengers immediately pursue the nearest target." DLO. Instead, Mia was methodically gathering materials: sticks, stones, vines, even ice chunks from a frozen stream. Her expression remained focused as she worked with practiced efficiency. "What is she doing?" hissed Dr. Krill, his tentacles curling with anxiety. "Commander Draz has already picked up the scent of a crughorn beast." Jack Fletcher leaned back in his observation chair, looking remarkably unconcerned. "She's doing what humans do best, planning." On the main display, Commander Draz was indeed closing in on his first prey, a massive six-legged predator with bone-crushing jaws. The cracks moved with impressive stealth despite his size, using natural camouflage abilities to blend with the jungle foliage. "The commander has excellent technique," admitted Professor Vexa, "and his evolutionary advantages are significant." "Yes," Jack nodded. "And that's exactly the problem." "Problem?" Vexa's skin pulsed with confusion. "Evolution is efficient but limited. It optimizes for specific environments and threats." Jack gestured toward Mia's display, where she had finished constructing what appeared to be a series of simple traps. "Humans don't wait for evolution. We adapt through innovation." The Senate representatives watched as Mia completed her preparations and then did something unexpected. She headed straight for the boundary between the tundra and desert sectors. "Is she avoiding the hunt?" rumbled the Betelgeusian delegate. Jack's smile widened slightly. "Just the opposite. She's controlling it." What happened next astonished the gathered assembly. Instead of tracking individual predators, Mia began systematically altering the environment itself. She created controlled burns at strategic points along the sector boundary, positioned her traps at natural choke points, and then most surprisingly used scent markers collected from one predator species to draw others toward her prepared killing grounds. "She's manipulating the ecosystem," Professor Vexa whispered, her luminescence flaring with sudden understanding, creating artificial migrations. Meanwhile, Commander Draz had successfully hunted two predator species through direct confrontation, using his natural weapons and impressive physical abilities. His hunting style was textbook perfection for his species, patient stalking followed by explosive speed and power. But as the challenge progressed, a pattern emerged. Draz was expending enormous energy with each hunt, each confrontation requiring full commitment of his considerable physical resources. In contrast, Mia rarely engaged directly with her targets. When the apex predators fled the controlled burns, they encountered her traps or were funneled into positions where she could take them down with minimal risk. By the halfway point of the challenge, the observation deck was buzzing with shocked commentary. 4 confirmed kills for the human, announced the official counter. 3 for Commander Draz. The Crack's delegation hissed with displeasure. Commander Vexa pounded a clawed fist against the railing. The human uses tricks. This is not true hunting. Jack raised an eyebrow. The rules specified no advanced technology. They said nothing about advanced thinking. As the final hours of the challenge approached, Commander Draz had clearly recognized the danger to his reputation. He abandoned his methodical approach and began pursuing targets with reckless determination, pushing his physical capabilities to their limits. Mia, by contrast, appeared to be expending less energy as the challenge progressed. Her system of environmental manipulation had created a self-sustaining panic among the remaining predator species, driving them into increasingly desperate behaviors that made them vulnerable. When the final signal sounded, the count stood at 7 confirmed kills for Mia Rodriguez and 5 for Commander Draz. Earth had won the predator challenge. The Senate chamber reconvened the following day for the formal decision on Earth's membership application. The atmosphere was charged with a new emotion that many species were still processing, respect tinged with worriness. High Counselor Drex called the session to order. Having witnessed the results of the Predator Challenge, the Senate will now vote on Earth's application for membership. The voting process was swift and decisive. Earth was accepted into the Galactic Senate with an overwhelming majority. Even the Cracks, bound by tradition to honor the results of the challenge, voted in favor. As the formal proceedings concluded, Jack Fletcher found himself surrounded by curious Senate representatives, all eager to discuss what they had witnessed. "Your hunter barely used weapons at all," noted the Proxima Centauri delegate. "She transformed the entire hunting ground into a weapon." Jack nodded. "That's humanity in a nutshell. We don't just adapt to our environment, we make the environment adapt to us." When Commander Vexa approached, his posture rigid with formal courtesy. "The Craxian Empire acknowledges your victory, Ambassador Fletcher. Your species' approach to predation is unorthodox, but effective." "Thank you, Commander," Jack replied with diplomatic grace. "We look forward to a productive relationship in the Senate." As the Cracks delegation moved away, Dr. Krill sidled up to Jack, his moisture suit humming quietly. "Ambassador, I've finalized my report on human predatory behaviors for the Senate archives. There's just one question I couldn't adequately address. A's. Given humanity's demonstrated capacity for environmental manipulation and predatory innovation, a capability that clearly extends beyond your planet, why would the other species of the galaxy feel safe accepting Earth into the Senate?" Jack's smile returned, but this time it reached his eyes, softening his expression. "Because the most important thing we learned while becoming Earth's apex predator wasn't how to hunt more efficiently. It was that once you reach the top, cooperation becomes more valuable than competition." He gestured around the chamber, where hundreds of vastly different species were engaged in the complex dance of galactic politics. "We didn't join the Senate because we need new hunting grounds. We joined because we recognize that the greatest predator is isolation. The greatest prey is potential. And the greatest victory isn't domination, it's partnership." Dr. Krill's skin shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue. "An elegant answer, Ambassador. Besides," Jack added with a wink, "we've already got 7 billion humans practicing predatory behaviors back home. We keep each other plenty sharp." As he turned to join the Earth delegation's celebration, Jack heard Dr. Krill mutter to Professor Vexa, "Note for the final report. Never challenge the species that hunted their own planet clean.